I beg you, and I say the word beg specifically, I'm begging you, please don't drink and drive.
Meet Matthew Cordell, a 22-year-old man who in June got into his truck after a night of drinking with friends. Matthew says he blacked out, but yet decided to drive home.
He said he was driving directly into oncoming traffic when he hit another car, killing the driver, Vincent Canzani. 2 months later, Matthew made this video.
This video will act as my confession. When I get charged, I will plead guilty and take full responsibility for everything I've done to Vincent and his family.
Matthew had faced up to 8.5 years in jail, but after this video confession, a judge sentenced him to 6.5 years, and he's lost his driving privileges for life.
Now, some question Matthew's motives behind the video.
You know, there's so many different, views on the video, and, something on this wide of a scale, there's going to be many different opinions, and those people are entitled to their opinions.
Was Matthew sincere in the video, or did he just do it to get a lesser sentence?
Well, you can make up your own mind, but here's what Matthew had to say after the sentencing.
I've never been to prison. I don't know exactly all the programs and everything offered there, but I'm going to take advantage of every educational program that I can, every recreational program that I can, and every work program that I can. As I said, to walk out of prison a better man than the day I walked in.
Well, regardless of how you feel about Matthew's video, one thing we can probably all agree on is that accidents like these are 100% avoidable.
Unfortunately, many people are still making the choice to drink and drive. In fact, earlier this year, police arrested a Harrington man for his 8th drunk driving offense. Police also recently arrested and charged a Berlin man with his 8th DUI offense. This past August, police arrested a Georgetown man for his 7th DUI. And just this year, Delaware police charged a Dover man with his 6th DUI offense.
And these are just the people who police say they've caught in the act. Listen to this. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, an average drunk driver has driven drunk 80 times before their first arrest. So why does this keep happening?
And joining us today to tell us how people keep becoming repeat offenders and to share his take on that video confession is attorney William Hall from Salisbury. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Glad to be here.
Let's start off with that video confession. He was he was facing 8.5 years, but he only got 6.5. Do you think that was lenient?
Well, you got to keep in mind that he was a first offender, okay? And he made himself a target by posting that video on social media. So he really brought a lot of attention to himself by doing that.
Because 6.5 years really is a pretty heavy sentence.
Especially for a first offender, someone who's not used to the Division of Corrections, and that is a long time to serve.
Now, he lost his license permanently.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
And every state, of course, is different on their laws with DWI and being convicted of DWI, but I've never heard of that before either.
Okay, so with the video, considering the video, did he help himself? Did he hurt himself?
He killed himself.
Yeah.
That is certainly something that I would not recommend that any client do. He brought a lot of attention to his case, and he basically made the prosecutor's case by posting that video, by confessing to doing that. He wasn't even going to be charged until that video came out.
Yeah, and what do you think about that? He wasn't charged until the video was released.
Well, a lot of times you never ever want to bring attention to yourself as a criminal defendant, and any good attorney would never ever recommend that he do something like that.
And his attorneys advised him to not do that, right?
Correct.
And he did it anyway.
And now he's serving the penalty.
What do you say about those who are caught in their 6th, 7th, even 8th DUI, as we just saw? How does that happen?
Unfortunately, we see this happen way too often. And for some people, they never ever get the help that they need. They don't get the message. And unfortunately, some people just always seem to fall through the cracks of the system.
That's how it happens repeatedly. So what do DUI offenders face?
Well, for a first offense, you can serve up to a year in jail and up to a $1,000 fine. Now, for most people, you will receive probation before judgment, which means you will be placed on supervised probation for up to 2 years, numerous fines, court costs, plus a 26-week alcohol educational program, which also costs a lot of money.
And there's also the ignition interlocks and things like that.
Exactly. Judges can order that. So for up to 2 years, you can have a device placed in your car that you have to blow into, and that's an additional expense.
But that's not typical.
That's fairly rare for that to happen.
Okay, but it hits you hard in the pocket.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here we're talking about drunk driving. There's been a whole lot of talk most recently about underage drinking and the role of adults in underage drinking. What do we need to keep in mind?
Parents have to keep in mind that it is against the law to host these parties. And all too often, we see instances where somebody does get drunk at one of these parties. They do drive away from the party and they are involved in an alcohol-related accident. That opens up the people hosting the party, the people responsible for the party, to all sorts of criminal and civil sanctions for their role in the party. And so many parents seem to think, hey, it's no problem having this party. I can keep my eye on the kids here, but it rarely works that way, and it always ends in a bad way.
And the big thing that we're seeing now is the whole Gansler case.
Exactly. And of course that took place up in Delaware,
right,
outside of his jurisdiction. But stay tuned. I think you will see more fallout from this story.
There hasn't been any DUI, there
No.
haven't been any charges or anything like that.
It's
but
just
come from-
basically these pictures, pretty much. People are talking about the pictures that were taken at a party that his kids were part of.
Correct. According to the Baltimore Sun, and the parents went in to rent this house in Delaware, and it was a graduation party. There were numerous underage people there. It's obvious that alcohol was being served at this party, and the pictures speak for themselves.
All right. Like
So
you said,
regardless
stay
of
tuned.
regardless of who you are and what you do, you need to pay attention. And again, we're just guessing right now, like you said from the pictures. What kind of charges could you see coming out of this?
If this took place in Maryland, and I've defended parents in these types of cases, you can be charged with furnishing alcohol to a minor, you can be charged with contributing to the conditions of a minor, and you can also be charged with reckless endangerment, all of which carry fines and possible jail time. And you can also be charged, you can be sued in civil court for any injuries that anyone received from that party.
And with this Gansler case, although no charges have been filed, this did happen in Delaware. Those charges could be brought on to him by Beau Biden, right?
Correct.
That could get interesting.
Very interesting.
In a hurry. William Hall, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Good information you got to remember. Now, if you'd like to read more about Attorney William Hall, about drunk driving, if you'd like to read more about its penalties, all you have to do is go to delmarvalife.com and click on the show tab. So coming up next, did you know the skin cream Noxema has roots right here on Delmarva? Author Everett Moore is going to share that story and others from his book that visits the history of small town Delmarva.
And later, getting granite may be easier and cheaper than what you might think. We'll learn more about the process and how it can really spruce up your home. And while we're talking about your home, maybe you want to make yours greener. Dr. Oz tells us how.
Do you want to go green and create a pollutant-free home, but it just seems too expensive? But don't give up. Here are some affordable things you can do. Install a water purifying filter in your bathroom or kitchen. And if that's too pricey, use a pitcher fitted with a charcoal filter. Liquid household chlorine bleaches contain chloride and ammonia, which evaporate into the air and is not good for you. Instead, use concentrated solutions and dilute them as needed. Stop using sponges, they grow bacteria. Replace them with inexpensive dishcloths and clean them weekly with good old-fashioned bleach. And make your own non-toxic cleaning products. Baking soda is great for cleaning. Going green doesn't have to break the bank. It just has to take common sense.